everybody, welcome to Let's Talk. I am your host, John, and today here on the channel, I got 3 reviews for you guys. First up, we're going to be talking about the latest film from Guillermo del Toro, Frankenstein. Then we're going to be doing 2 of our channel director reviews. So for Frank from Frank's Media and Reviews, we're going to be talking about Llamageddon. And for Kevin Kruger, we're going to be talking about the Tubi film Adopted. But like I said, first up, let's talk about Frankenstein, which was one of my most anticipated films of 2025. Guillermo del Toro is one of my favorite directors, and I think he's one of the best working directors today, still doing what we all hope directors would do, really concentrate on their craft. He's really been building up to making Frankenstein. He still uses these practical effects, these practical sets, and I mean, the production design is the first thing that absolutely stands out about Frankenstein this time around. And this is an adaptation of the 1818 novel by Mary Shelley. So this isn't a remake of the old Universal Monsters film, or even, 1994, like many of the other Frankenstein films. No, this is a retelling of that novel, so that's exactly what it's based on. I've never read the novel, so maybe this is actually more accurate to how the novel's written. I'm not entirely sure, but there are some key differences from all the other films that I've seen in the past. And honestly, this might be my favorite adaptation of Frankenstein. Maybe not my favorite, kind of telling of Frankenstein, like, Edward Scissorhands and Young Frankenstein. I think those would still be my favorite ones, but if you were going to like the more conventional route, I think this one might actually be my favorite. And of course, Guillermo del Toro, he has a certain charm to him, so this isn't like a straightforward horror film as well. This is, it's a gothic romance film, very much in line with Crimson Peak. Also, if you've seen The Shape of Water, that's already his monster movie, so that movie already is kind of like Frankenstein as it is, and it was all building up to him finally getting to make Frankenstein. The guy got to make Pinocchio, now he gets to make Frankenstein, and this time as Dr. Frankenstein, we have Oscar Isaac, who does a phenomenal job in this movie. And and of course, it being Frankenstein, the true monster isn't his monster, but him himself. Dr. Frankenstein, Dr. Victor Frankenstein. And the monster, the creature, is played by Jacob Elordi, continuing his ascent in Hollywood, just a star on the rise, and he does a fantastic job in this movie as well. One thing about the effects, though, in the early part of the movie, when he comes to life, he looks a lot like the character of Powder from the movie Powder from back in the day. And then when he starts growing the hair out long, he looks like, one of the blue people from Avatar. So that was a little bit distracting, because there is still some CGI. Even though most of the stuff is done practically, there's still some CGI in here, and it's, kind of noticeable, but still, it's better than, what they do for the most part with using green screens. No, this stuff just looks phenomenal on the screen overall. And of course, this is being a Netflix film. You can only watch this on Netflix right now. It had a brief theatrical run, which is just a joke theatrical run, just so that they can, have this up for awards nominations, which it definitely will be nominated for plenty of awards, including Best Picture, in my opinion. It is one of the best films of 2025. But Netflix just not giving it the proper theatrical run is, very frustrating for me, especially for a lot of other cinephiles who would probably want to see this in a Dolby Theater or an IMAX theater. Given theater prices being what they are right now, I'm not really in love with theaters at the moment, so I don't really blame Netflix for wanting people to pay for their streaming service. But still, for the cinephiles, we probably still would want to go see this in a theater and be able to watch it at home in a proper theater, not some hole in the wall theater where you said, hey, it was in theaters. If you wanted to see it, you just had to go down, this crazy alley to find it, but it was out there. So that's one thing that I'm a little bit upset about, because it sounded great. It looked beautiful. It was so well done. The way that they actually told the story, with it being narrated by 2 different characters, we start with one and we end with another, is also great. I admired it. I also really thought it was a little bit of a melodrama, which I appreciate. Some people might not like that. They might think they're getting a very straightforward horror film. And, for the horror fans out there, it is very violent in moments and very gory, which I appreciated. All the other actors besides the 2 leads do a phenomenal job as well. Christoph Waltz is in this movie, and it's him even with that wig, because of that distinct voice. He's great in this movie. Maya Goth, who I just watched the entire X trilogy this week, so I have her on the brain anyway, and she pops up in this movie. She also just does a great job. Some of her moments with the creature are some of my favorite moments in this film. They really get you emotionally, and a lot of that, it's also because of the great score for this film. So it's manipulating your emotions, and I get that. And maybe they didn't go for the darkest version of Frankenstein that you've ever seen, but this version of Frankenstein in particular is right up Guillermo del Toro's alley. Maybe his Nightmare Alley, I don't know, but right up his alley. And if you're a fan of his work, especially his work recently, you're really going to appreciate this. This is right in line with Crimson Peak, The Shape of Water, Pinocchio. Like, if you've been liking that, it's a little bit different than Nightmare Alley. You're really going to appreciate this. And honestly, the way it looks, it reminded me like he took inspiration not just from, those monster movies of the past or those gothic horror films that he's made. Now, he also took inspiration from movies like Barry Lyndon. Like, shots right out of Barry Lyndon are in this movie. So it's very picturesque. It's just a beautiful looking movie that I would have loved to see on the big screen. It'll probably get a physical media release sometime down the line from the Criterion Collection. He's worked with the Criterion Collection a lot. Even movies that got Disney Buena Vista 4K Blu-ray releases like The Shape of Water and Nightmare Alley got brand new 4K Blu-ray releases, and for Nightmare Alley, a brand new cut of it. So this should get a 4K Blu-ray release, a physical media release sometime down the line, because Guillermo del Toro, a big fan of physical media, he's going to spring for all the bells and whistles, and I'm sure that deal is already in place. And I look forward to getting it because I really enjoyed this movie. It's one of the best of 2025. Not quite enough to crack my top 3 yet, but who knows, maybe sometime down the line. But for now, I'm going to give this one a pretty damn solid 9 out of 10. So full disclosure for you guys, I'm going to kick it over to my past self because I did already record this review, but I accidentally deleted it off my computer, so had to re-record it. So we're going to kick it over to past John, Back to the Future style. All right, the next 2 films we're going to be talking about are Llamageddon, and this was a choice for Frank from Frank's Media and Reviews, and Adopted, which was a choice from Kevin Kruger. Now, I actually did a double feature of these 2 films, and that was kind of a long, busy day of just doing editing on the computer. It's my regular day off from my Joe job, but I still had a lot of work to do around the house. I had to get a brand new tire on my car, spend some money that I didn't have, so it was, a very frustrating day, I would say, up to that point. But in the afternoon, I was like, all right, I'm going to put on Adopted, which was Kevin Kruger's choice review. This was on Tubi. It's a Tubi original film, so it's produced by them. It is directed by Chris Stokes, and this is a very, we've seen this premise before in horror films. A family, they're desperate, they want a kid, they can't have a kid, or they can't have a kid, and they don't want to have it at a very young age, so they want to adopt a kid in, like in the young teens, like preteen area, like 10 years old, actually. We'll say that, because I think he's 10 years old, this kid they adopt. And at the very beginning of this movie, we see this kid, and he lets his, I guess at this time, his foster parent die. So we know that this kid isn't very well off. And the kid, not a very good actor, and neither is anybody in this movie. In fact, this movie is filled with some of the worst acting you will ever see. But the movie itself, it looks good enough. Like, it's got a little bit of money behind it. It does kind of feel like a cheap movie, but it's not the worst looking movie that I've ever seen. So you blend that with the absolute atrocious acting from everybody, including the child actors. And again, this child actor, he's cute enough, I guess, so they're like, okay, you'll be fine. We'll get you in the movie. You'll be the lead actor. And, eventually he gets adopted by a new family. First big question comes up. They're like, oh, we don't really know too much about his past. Those files are buried. You don't know anything about this kid's past, like where he came from, who his original parents are, why he's gone from foster family to foster family, even though he seems like a perfect kid. Doesn't really add up. These parents, though, they're fucking morons, so they have no problem. They'll take him home with them. And, of course, things start to go bad, as you would expect. And I'm going to spoil this movie. I'm going to spoil Llamageddon, too, because I don't think it really affects you guys watching these kinds of movies. I just think they're pretty fun to watch, but both of them are not good movies. Nobody is going to say Adopted is a good movie. It's just a fucking blast. It's just so fun to watch a movie like this. Again, like, very simple premise where these parents don't know who they adopted. They adopted a monster. The only thing with this monster, and different from Frankenstein's monster, is there's a little bit of sympathy they try and build up for this character in the movie. There's one scene when they show his original parents and his father like beating the shit out of him and burning him, which, by the way, in the beginning and the end of this movie, they talk about, like, they put a screen up showing you, hey, if you've experienced domestic abuse, child abuse, call these numbers, yada yada yada. Is this a good movie to like be talking about that? Because again, it's all done just so poorly. It comes off more like a comedy and not a serious film. And I'm like, did you want us to take this movie seriously? Because I can't take this movie seriously. There's no way to take this movie seriously. Everything these characters are saying is just absolutely absurd and ridiculous. And anytime there's any violence, they make sure to like cut away and just show us like after the fact, or in the case of the very end of this movie, when the cops finally come storming the door and the kid's got the gun. And again, just so unbelievable. Did he kill the cops? We don't know, because the movie cuts to black from there. And I saw a comment on Letterboxd like, did they run out of money? Is that might be what happened, but I doubt it, because this movie got an Adopted 2 and Adopted 3 are coming out. Now, will I watch those movies? Absolutely. Like I said, I had an absolute blast watching this movie. Same thing with Llamageddon, just a slight spoiler for that review. I think there's a place in cinema for movies like this. You know, they're good palate cleanser movies. They're not taking themselves too seriously. At least I hope they're not taking themselves too seriously. I hope they are self-aware enough to know what kind of movies they're making here. Because, I mean, at some point you should have intervened and been like, these actors, good at acting? Because I'm not seeing it. That didn't happen. But, you know, I figure even if they don't know, they're like, okay, we can edit this together and make this movie like this, and at least people will be entertained by it, because Adopted is absolutely a perfect representative of what Tubi's brand is. Just, you know, a streaming service that has commercials. It's absolutely free, but you can put it on, pretty much watch anything, and they have a ton of these like shitty, almost B movies that you're like, how did this get made? And Tubi's the one who made this movie, so it makes all the sense in the world. On a film like this, how do I score it on a score of 1 to 10? Because realistically, it's a very bad movie and it deserves like a 1. But on the other hand, it's so entertaining. It doesn't break the cardinal sin of filmmaking, which in my opinion is just don't be fucking boring. Like, The Exorcist 2, The Heretic is a way worse film to me than Adopted or Llamageddon will ever be, just because that movie, it's only good for a cure for insomnia, and that is it. Whereas Adopted, you can sit down, and this is probably one you can get some friends together, have a good time, and just laugh your ass off at. And that's why I had a good time with it, and I'll give it a 5 out of 10, which leads us into Llamageddon. Now, my channel director, Frank from Frank's Media and Reviews, he actually did a review on his channel for this, because his channel member, who happens to be a friend of the channel, Insomniac, who friend of our channel, he asked Frank to review that movie. And actually, I needed Insomniac's help. I don't know if he knows this, but, you know, getting the movie to Frank so I could actually see the movie, because you can't watch this anywhere anymore. And Frank's response was, when I told him that, was, it's just so terrible that there's just no way to watch it. And I was like, Jesus Christ. And the movie's only, I think, it's under 90 minutes. Both Adopted and Llamageddon are under 90 minutes. And that's what makes it, again, a really fun double feature. I just finished Adopted. I had a shit-eating grin on my face. And then I turned on Llamageddon. And I'm like, and my wife came home at this point, by the way. I went and picked her up from work and put on Llamageddon. And, you know, about 5 minutes into the movie, she's trying to do her homework. She's like, what the fuck are you watching? Because this movie is just insane. And I mean, they actually have good elements of filmmaking in it, because there's a lot of animated sequences in the early part of the movie where we find out why this llama, it's called Llamageddon because it's about a killer llama who crash lands on Earth, and he just wants to kill everybody. I mean, they even have a real llama, like, with just red eyes. That's it. And it's shot poorly. Like I said, that Tubi's The Adopted, you know, it's shot well. It just feels a little bit like, you know, a TLC show. It's just got that very clean look, like, oh, you know, there's nothing cinematic about the look, but this looks like it was recorded on a cell phone in 2015 when this movie came out, which was it 2014 or 15? I think 2015. It looks like it was recorded on an iPhone back then. So it looks shitty. And again, the acting is absolutely atrocious, but it's the full commitment to this movie that I admire, at least, because, again, just like Adopted, they know what kind of movie they're making. This movie's about a killer llama, and they don't have any money. All the actors in this movie are no-name actors or anything like that. No one you would expect. It's just absolutely hilarious. If you've ever seen movies like The Greasy Strangler or movies like kind of in that vein, which are just so absurd and ridiculous, I think that Llamageddon is your kind of film, because you're just going to appreciate the full commitment from, yes, the bad actors, but their full commitment to everything that's going on. There's a point in this movie where the llama, you know, they don't realize Llamageddon's happening. They don't know the llama's here, so people are just getting picked off. At one point, the llama's like punching people in the face. We get the first-person view of it, and it's just paws or whatever the hell, like hooves. Is it a hoof? You know, and there's punching the guy in the face. Just looks insane. Absolutely ridiculous. He kills a bunch of people in a hot tub. At one point, he takes a hit of weed. I mean, all of it is just absolutely insane. That doesn't mean that the human characters aren't absolutely insane either, because this movie's stars are a brother and sister. And the brother, Floyd, you know, he's like a little, like, you know, like a little dweeb in like the first half of the movie. He finally gets laid. And the first thing he says after he gets laid is, I'm a man now. And all of a sudden, from that point on, his entire character does a 180. He's the assertive one. He's the strong one. He's no longer the weak man, because he's a man now. That's it. Once you get some, you become a man. I guess I can't debate it. He is a man now. He's no longer a boy, and he's going to be the one to save their day. But of course, their father, who also truly loves sex. I mean, for the first 2 scenes we see him in this movie, he's also getting laid. And at one point, the lady says, "You have kids?" He's like, "A couple." He's like, and the girl says, "Well, you're about to have a few." So, all right, he's got a third kid on the way as well. But this character, I thought was just going to be in the bed the whole time. He's actually the one who eventually comes and saves the day. He comes down to the farm. He's able to like pull himself out of bed, and he's got the gun, and he's the one who's able to like finally take down the llama and start Llamageddon, or so we think. But anyway, the movie itself is, like I said, it's a lot of fun. It's just fun to watch. It's so stupid. It's so bad. I can't say if you're somebody who's like, you know, if, how do I put this? I guess if you're a little bit pretentious and you're not somebody who's into these kinds of movies, there's no way you're going to like it. But sometimes I think these kinds of movies are a great palate cleanser. They're just a lot of fun to watch. They're never taking themselves too seriously. I do think they have their part in cinema. Obviously, these aren't the kinds of movies that get nominated for any awards unless they're Razzies, but I do appreciate them. I enjoy them. They're really good if you're watching a ton of like serious dramas, especially around this time of the year where all the Best Picture nominees, or you know, all the films that want to be Best Picture nominees start coming out, and you're just like, all right, I get it. Like, let's just beat this horse with the shovel. Like, you know, it's already dead, but whatever. But it just kind of feels like that kind of thing through this time of the, at least towards the end of the year. You know, you mix in some Christmas movies, but still, early November, I had an absolute blast watching both Llamageddon and Adopted. And if I was going to give Llamageddon a score of 1 to 10, I'll give this one a pretty damn solid 5 out of 10, just like Adopted. You know, is it bad? Is it good? We'll shoot it right in the middle. It's so bad that it's good is the best way to put these kinds of movies. And I had a blast. If you guys want, you know, that's a great double feature. And especially after you watch Frankenstein, which is a very serious, dark movie. But again, like I said, a little melodramatic in the best way possible. If you're into that kind of thing, I think you'll love that movie as well. But either way, all three are good films in their own right. One of them just happens to be one of the best films of 2025. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it here for me on another episode of Let's Talk. I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and if you did, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this video if you could. We also have channel memberships, guys, so if you want to become a friend of the channel, a producer for the channel like John Doe Juggalo, Harvey Scott, and Ben Rondo, you could do that. Or you could even become a channel director like Frank from Frank's Media and Reviews, Kevin Kruger, Nicholas Head, Stone Gasman, and Uncle V. You could do that, or you could even bump it up to the channel bankroll members like Mr. Smelly Potato. And remember, if you're a channel director or higher, you have your own choice review each and every single month. Producers, you get on to our channel giveaway for our physical media giveaway. And then, of course, if you're a friend of the channel, you get everything a little bit early. And if you were to upgrade to the channel bankroll member tier, you could have your own choice review each and every single month, and you'll have your own choice video every other month. And for this month, Mr. Smelly Potato was chosen for me to count down the top 10 Kurt Russell films, so keep an eye out for that. But anyway, guys, if you got no money to throw my way, I don't mind at all. I just hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, get out in those streets, tell your friends about us, and then we'll be seeing you around.